Hello, Marvelites. Welcome back. You are watching Marvel live at Comic-Con 2018. I'm Ryan Pedagos, aka Agent M, and I'm so excited to be joined by the Marvel Studios visual development team, Ryan Meinerding, Andy Park, Charlie Wen. Y'all just came from a big signing, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
I was here this morning. I got here at like 7:45. We were working, but as soon as the doors opened, people rushed. They wanted to get tickets, and so there's this new system for getting tickets for the signings. And so they hit a plunger, and there's a little thing that spins, and it's like, if you don't get a ticket, Thanos has taken your soul. There's an old picture of Thanos. But if you do get it, they tell you what signing you get. And the people were getting tickets for your guys' signing, and they were screaming, and they were just like so happy and delighted. It was really nice.
They knew it was us?
Cool. Yeah, well, I don't know if they knew.
Avengers cast?
They said, this is Marvel Studios visual development team, and they're just like, cool, because
right on.
We are, of course, surrounded by the influences of your work.
Oh, that's very kind.
Everywhere. I mean, it's the truth. It's just the truth. You guys had a piece of art, right, that you were signing? What was that?
That was the Comic-Con giveaway last year, the Infinity War posters I had done. They were originally 3 posters.
Triptych?
Yeah, it was put together into 1 poster.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was nice.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. So we're 10 years Marvel Studios movies. At what point did you all join the Marvel Studios team?
So I started on Iron Man. Jon Favreau hired me on maybe like a week after Phil Saunders started, so we're like sort of the first artist working on the cinematic universe.
We had Thor, Captain America, and it was on Captain America in the middle that we started the whole team. So
yeah, and you, Andy?
Yeah, and then around that time, that's when Ryan and Charlie started the visual development team. And I was the first one they hired back in 2010, about 8 years ago. So pretty much to start on the Avengers film.
Nice. How did you all know each other? Was it just like art? I don't know how artists work. Y'all are crazy. I literally I think you all create magic. So how did you know each other?
Charlie had hired me to work on God of War. Charlie had started the God of
War.
The video game God of War.
I love God of War. Like those games are great.
Hired Andy on as well, and so we were on God of War.
He designed Kratos.
And
it's a pretty good design. It's fine. It's fine.
By the way, but that was actually one of the things of, once we had Drax the Destroyer, my jaw just dropped. I was like, that looks very familiar.
Redesigned that Drax.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. But we were all together then, and then it was always just Ryan ended up going after a very short time, and then he was at Marvel very quickly after that, on Iron Man, and then after he invited me, and then we ended up inviting Andy, and then that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah. I love how video games and comics and movies and like that creative sauce sort of intertwines, and you guys you can jump between mediums, and I mean, have you guys ever done some like comic covers or comic work too? I'm sure I know you have, Andy.
Yeah, the first 10 years of my career was drawing comic books for Rob Liefeld, for Tomb Raider, for Mark Silvestri, and for Marvel Comics.
Yep.
So then I made the transition into God of War. This guy hired me.
Yeah. Have you had the itch to do comic stuff?
I always had the itch.
Yeah.
Never have the time. I mean, the movie stuff has been incredibly overwhelming over the past little while. I was lucky enough to do some stuff for video games, and I've done some comic covers for Marvel Comics that have kind of come out of the work I've done for the studios.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to do at some point.
I was sitting in Hall H yesterday for Marvel Spider-Man, the new game that's coming out in September, and I was just thinking about all the times we've been in Hall H for Marvel Studios, and just like the atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
What is that like for you guys who have been, as you said, working sort of closed doors? You don't see the sun, you don't see your families, they barely feed you, you don't get out there, but then you're sitting with 6,000 fans who are literally crying. Some of them are crying, screaming. What is that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting to Hall H and seeing that excitement, it's one of the best parts of the job. It's literally maybe the best part. Like when I was in there when Tom Hiddleston came out as Loki, and when the Avengers cast was announced too. Like there's so much excitement. There's so much palpable emotion in that room. that, I don't know, those are some of my best memories of working for Marvel Studios and seeing that reaction firsthand.
Yeah.
I think for me, it essentially fuels me. Like it's a highlight every year to come to Comic-Con, and especially Hall H. I was so sad when Kevin told us we're not going to be doing it this year. But going into there, and seeing the fan reaction, it's almost like it fuels you for the next year. It sustains you to keep on working on these films and give the fans what they want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is the reason we're doing all of this, because I think we all started off as fans, and we still are fans, and so, getting to go back and think about why we originally just fell in love with comics in the first place. You look at the fans right now, and they're like, this is what we're helping to build for them. So, definitely.
Do you, we're here at Comic-Con, of course, tons of fans, and there's cosplayers and all this stuff. Was it weird, or is it just normal now to see a fan who is cosplaying as your design, your interpretation of characters that are now 50, 60 years old in many cases, but the ones that you were like, what if I did this and change that?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredibly cool, and it's incredibly humbling too. These characters have been around, and have new generations of fans have come and fallen in love with them in different ways. And the fact that something that we've been able to do for the studios that have been part of the movies could inspire people to want to wear the costumes in a like sort of a new version of the characters, or hopefully as respectful of the characters as we can possibly be. But it's an incredible treat to see people, and I try to stop people and try to take pictures with them as much as I can, because it's really humbling and gratifying.
Yeah.
And just the craftsmanship, the level of craftsmanship that these cosplayers are creating their suits. It's just like, oh, that looks very similar to the real thing, because we get to to work with the real thing, and it's just like amazing what they can create now.
Yeah. Sometimes it actually makes you want to. Because I just got approached by 2 Loki cosplayers that were like, "Oh, did you have the back views of certain Lokis?" I was like, and what's going through my mind is, I don't think I did a back view of that. I only did it for the costume department, but there's some just little sketches. So, but it does make you want to actually just create one for them, because they love it so much, and it's really why you're doing it. More so than just to make the movies or to appease Marvel Studios, but it's really for them.
I mean, in terms of the work that we do, it's really about trying to make a roadmap for someone to build the costume, whether that's the costume departments or cosplayers. So it's usually like I think it's in some cases when like there are not officially released images. Like sometimes I think that concept art is what they have to start from, and it's incredibly cool to be part of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I didn't really think about, when you're designing these, do you keep in mind sort of the practicality of it, or are you just looking at like, this looks so cool, this is what I'm just barreling to the coolest look, or is there a mix? What is it when you guys are thinking about this?
I mean, it's always a mix. It's always, depending on if it's going to be a real costume, we're definitely thinking about practicality more than if it's a digital character. Iron Man suits, that's where it all started, right? And one of the reasons why that aesthetic of the MCU started there was the fact that it felt real and grounded, and that if he raised his arms, the plates would collapse. Yeah. And so that sort of realism and groundedness is stuff that we're always trying to infuse into the designs. Yeah. And when they're going to be costumes, I mean, if we do something that's impractical, the costume designers tell us, and we end up having to make tweaks and changes, and we're usually trying to use those types of limitations as ways of being inspired to find new solutions, and also just push it as far forward as we can. We are sort of responsible for coming up with that iconic look that people are going to try and chase, and because it's just a digital, or it's a picture, it's easier for us to suggest things that might be harder than building it practically. Yeah. But we're trying to do our best to weave it all together and make the best image that could be practical as well.
But that's also why sometimes we do find it necessary to do something in 3D. There's been several instances where it felt like giving them an image or a painting isn't going to be enough, and so we actually have to discover it in 3D. Like, there's many cases. I mean, there's some specifics with characters' faces, like Thanos or the Hulk, like with Ultron, where you have to really figure out, is it going to actually work? So those kind of cases, you really do need to just figure out in 3D, and that's all practical cases too.
Yeah. What about items too? You know, like the props and stuff. I was thinking about Russell Bobbitt, who's downstairs. He's got his amazing. I've been to his prop warehouse, and I was just like, where am I? This is magic place. Like walking through like his trailer setup, and I was just like, this is incredible. You guys doing that stuff too, and what's that part of the process like?
I mean, a lot of it still is like starting with the classic comic reference, seeing like what's going to needed for the story, and then trying to create the version of that works with the story and is like as iconic as possible. I mean, I think each of us has gotten to do a iconic like Marvel item.
Who did the gauntlet?
You know, honestly, I think Russell was actually in charge of doing that all the way back in Thor, because it's based on the one that was in Thor. And I think I can't remember the concept artist's name.
Because you've had such amazing teams and so many people across the years.
Sure. This was before we actually had our VizDev team. So Charlie and I were working on that film. But you know, I've been lucky enough to design Cap's shield, and Charlie did Mjolnir, and Andy did.
Helmets and helmets.
No, but
that counts.
But even Daredevil's Billy clubs,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
like that was pretty rad.
Because it's all the weapons, right?
Yeah. So, and I was fortunate enough to do Stormbreaker for Infinity War too.
I don't know if I could talk about it, whatever. I'm looking at those inside the warehouse, and like the practicality of those and feeling those, it's the coolest thing in the world.
Right.
You guys get to actually like, well, I've got to see my work in 3D and see it really living and breathing. Because like the metal Stormbreaker is incredible.
Well, I mean, what we do is as real as we can make it, which is still usually an image on a computer screen, unless we get something 3D printed. The stuff that Russell and the prop masters, the prop department, and the specialty costume places and the costume departments have to make all that stuff work. And all the engineering and amazing work that they do to make that thing feel weighted and proper, and that it doesn't like want to tip out of Chris Hemsworth's hands, like it's all incredible stuff they do as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think besides the weapons, probably one of the ones that we would be even more kind of on top of as far as just making sure it comes out a certain way is like helmets. Anything that's on character faces, just because both actors are going to be very specific with how they don't like certain ways that it's coming out in their face when they're acting, or how it looks on them, because that's really part of their persona. So that's a huge part. Like, is it going to come out right? And you're working very closely with the costume department on that.
Well, I think the biggest challenge about the helmets is, you know, humans are not like 9 heads tall. Like a lot of times we idealize, especially in comic books, right? So how do you make an actor look like the icon with the helmet without looking like a Funko bobblehead? You know, that's a challenge. You know, I've done the Ant-Man helmet and the Wasp helmet. Ryan's done like all the Cap helmets. Charlie's done like the Thor helmets, and
it's no big deal. It's just the icons that fuel hundreds of thousands of people sitting in here right now. That's great.
It's just you know.
Obviously, you're talking about all these different things that you've worked on, these characters, these items. Is there something that, you know, now that we're in the 10-year anniversary, as we're doing a lot of looking back and celebrating, you're going through, you know, there's art books, there's you know, these videos that are out there, things that you're like, oh man, I love this. I remember doing this. This really made me happy.
You know, for me, like getting to work on Cap and sort of finally getting that helmet and the stealth helmet to really fit Chris's head, and like really get that Captain America silhouette with the ears exposed. Like, I was really looking back on that. Like, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of things like that I was very proud to have worked on. The other thing that's really amazing is like we got to do these group ensemble concept art poster pieces that were, you know, all of us working on it. And like the fact that we are a team, we get to work together and have been working together for so long. And there's a sort of a physical manifestation of that, in that those posters are like all of our hard work, and it becomes representative of the films. Those are really, really, those are the times where I look back, because they're hard to do. Like those are late nights. Those are us like showing each other what we're working on, trying to match it up, and there's a lot of passion and love that went into those.